was shopping.
Yeah, so the story has been kind
Online.
of playing out for the last couple of months. It started with Andrade was trying to recruit 10, and then Jose, the assistant, whose last name is the assistant, according to John Silver.
I want that. See, I would totally get business cards if that were my name.
He should.
I would. This is me. This is where I'm at.
And then, as John Silver also calls him, Roosh Bag.
You know what? I'm not gonna lie, because I am so easy when it comes to like puns and and like, you know, portmanteau. But when he called him Roosh Bag for the first time, it legitimately popped me.
Me too.
I was like, you know what? I give up. You win.
We do love the Meat Man. I heard them talking. I did hear that part yesterday when I listened to the Hollow Boom. We do love the Meat Man. He's great. But yeah, so it's Roosh Bag is very childish, and I love it. But yes, they've been trying to recruit 10. 10's been very against it, or seemingly has been very against it. And then on BTE is back. Yay! So on Monday on BTE, Silver, Reynolds, and Evil Uno can't find 10. Like, they keep calling him. They're leaving. John Silver was leaving very inappropriate messages. Then he was leaving very angry messages. And then Reynolds is leaving messages. Evil Uno, he's not responding. They cannot find him. So it spills over into Friday. Mark Henry does his thing, and where he interviews the people, and it was supposed to be a 6-man match. It was supposed to be Silver, Reynolds, and 10 versus Roosh. Is it Roosh, Bandito, and no, not Bandito. It was Roosh, Butcher, and Blade.
That's it.
Was the match. And so they're interviewing them, and they're like, where's 10? We can't find 10. And they're like, I don't know. Evil Uno's gone to look for him. So they start the match, and it's a handicap match. They are just they're having a hard time beating the numbers game. We see 10. Evil Uno comes out. 10 comes running down, and 10 like glares at Roosh, and it almost seemed like, okay, was he being held somewhere? Like, did they lock him away so that he couldn't compete? And then he decides that he's going to, I think he clotheslined John Silver, and he set Roosh up for the win. And so everybody's like, commentary's freaking out. They throw Evil Uno into the steps. They get him in, and then to make matters worse, 10 does the discus lariat, which was Mr. Brodie Lee's finisher. So he's just needling in everything.
Rubbing all the salt and all the wounds.
Yeah. And then like they start ripping Evil Uno's mask off. His face is bleeding. And like they cut to -1, who is like distraught. He's like rubbing his eyes like he's crying, and he's just heartbroken. And then to like really, really, really seal in the heel turn, 10 comes and stands directly in front of 10, undoes the mask that Brodie Lee gave him, and throws it down at his feet. Then he goes behind -1, and -1 has the mask in his hands. He holds it up to his head, and he grins. Like, and then it just like cuts off. Oh my God. This was so well done, but oh my God, it made me so mad and broke my heart. And I was very happy with the way it turned out, because I think this is huge for 10. And it was just all of it. Like, it was perfect the way that it played out. And then I remembered, Nikki and I actually remembered right around, hang on, Brad says the shot of -1 kneeled down holding the mask with 10 and Roosh holding their hands up was so great. Yeah, that was perfect. So Nikki reminded me, and Nikki and I actually talked about it at the same time. So I interviewed 10 last year before Rampage was going to be a thing. And 10 and I talked about his relationship with Brodie Jr. And Brodie Jr., this was actually Brodie Jr.'s idea, because Brodie told him before, if you aren't 10 anymore and I come back in 10 years, I'm going to be the one to give you your mask. So, and he was talking about how Brodie is so smart, and he's smarter than he's like, he's so much wiser than his age. Like he just gets it. And he comes to me with all of his ideas, and he was like, they FaceTimed all the time. And, you know, they're really close, especially since Brodie Lee passed away. And so even though it was really hard to watch and it was really, really well done, it also gives me a lot of satisfaction because a lot of it was Negative One's idea.
That's amazing.
I don't know who was the one who like made it happen and like went to Tony and be like, this is what we should do. This is how we should do it. I was not expecting, I should have been, because it was Thanksgiving and he wouldn't have been in school. I was not expecting Negative One to be out
right
there.
Yep.
And then it just spiraled, and I was like, oh my God. But yeah, it was I loved it and I hated it. But I think it's and then to make it even more interesting, Amanda Huber was tweeting.
Oh, I know. She was like, her tweets were so deep. God.
Yeah, because she said, because the last line of the first tweet was, looking back, he was wrong in picking you. And I was just like, oh my God. I was like,
we all know who she's talking about.
Yeah, and so 10 was quote tweeting her, and then she'd quote tweeted back, and they were just exchanging things. And I tweeted that I wanted Amanda Huber versus 10 at Revolution.
There we go. First match. Boom.
Yeah. So yeah, and so I really enjoyed that that Amanda is playing into it too and helping to get. And then 10 was like, because I follow him on Twitter, so he was retweeting like people mad at him. I mean, he was retweeting the people who enjoyed it, and they're like, this is the best thing for 10. 10's gonna be great with, like, I think this is the best thing for him to do in this part of his career. Like, Dark Order was holding him back, this type of thing. But then he was retweeting all the people who were mad at him for breaking Negative One's heart and turning on Dark Order. And like, so he's been fun to watch on Twitter. And so I'm really interested to see where this goes with him. I think 10 is definitely an underrated talent. And I guess he won't be 10 anymore. I guess he'll be Preston Vance
now.
So I have to get used to calling him Preston or Vance. But yeah, so a lot of betrayal this week.
A lot. It was heavy.
Mm-hmm. A lot of people are talking about that story, which I think is the important thing, is, you know, people are talking about 10, and that's not something that happens very often. Brad said, I love that he could be Brodie picking him for Dark Order. He could be Negative One choosing 10 as his hero, which, you know, that's really, because I assumed Brodie Lee, but you know, it could be Negative One, because he did pick him, and so it very well could be that. Dazzle said, there's so many taking issue with all this, and Amanda's tweet, so I think it's awesome.
It is awesome.
Yeah, she used to be a wrestler too. Like, that's how she met.
And she gets it. Yeah,
that's how she met Brodie.
Well, I think for me, I know that she runs most of the outreach stuff. So when it comes to all the community outreach stuff that AEW does, she is one of the people that, like, she's sort of the leader of all of that. Yeah. So this storyline will elevate her, and people will start following her, and it will help. It will ultimately, in the long term, it will help the outreach program.
Yeah, you know, and I didn't think of that, but that's true.
And one of the outreach programs that they have is the one that is in Brodie Lee's name to help people whose careers, younger people whose careers were derailed by losing a parent or loved one early in their life. And as someone who lost their dad when they were 20, that's something that I'm like, I mean, you know, when I look at what goes on with Brodie Lee and how well and the kids, both of them, all of them are taken care of, and how well that company has taken care of them, that's a very personal thing, because the importance of having that level of the support system under the circumstances, it's invaluable. And I'm like, I love those people. I don't even know them and love them because
I think so many.
I know what they are doing is something that will influence those kids' lives in a way that is inexplicable to people, unless you, I mean, tragedy is a pain in the ass, and these guys are well supported. And again, it's another reflection of the company at large, which is why, like you say, it's the same reason, like, you're going to get my money every time because you don't let me down.
Right.
And these are the kinds of things.
They have that built-in trust and goodwill. And then, like you said, when they do things like this, like that just helps, further that. And it helps that you can see, like, I think because so many times, I mean, listen, AEW is not perfect. There's a lot of issues.
No, of
course, and I don't want to say that all, but when you come from a company where you're the main company you watch and you see the way that people are treated there versus the way they're treated here. I mean, I know you can make some arguments about Andrade and things like that, maybe not, him wanting to leave and having to stay there. And so of course those are, valid discussions, but I think overall, like as a company, they treat people like human beings. And I think that's a huge,
there's a lot of dignity and respect within the company that is extended to everybody. They don't get treated like trash.
Well, and even like,
I for me, it's as someone with that background, I just love the idea that like Amanda Huber, it will elevate her, and that will elevate the platforms that she supports,
which is incredible. That's an incredible, like, we're getting an amazing story. They're pushing
plus wrestling.
They're telling, we're getting an amazing story. They're pushing Tin, who is a younger guy who could, he could potentially be a big star for them. And then at the same time, you're still including -1. You're still making him feel involved. And so that was kind of the thing, is like, what happens if Dark Order goes away? Because Dark Order has been there from the very beginning. I mean, it was a really, really rough start for them in the beginning. Bless Silver and Reynolds, because those two have stuck it out. And then, of course, I mean, yes, Brodie Lee, his passing, definitely, they turned them into it because people love them so much. They turned into baby faces, and they kind of went with the story, they kind of like the Acclaimed, like they kind of just followed what the fans wanted.
Evolved with what they saw was in front of them.
And so, and now it'll be interesting. So, and also Dark Order doesn't have Hangman Page either. Like
I think that day, like, I think that we can pretty confidently say that, like, stepdad Hangman to the Dark Order being cool stepdad, like that's gone now.
That's gone.
The next thing that Hangman does is going to have nothing to do with the Dark Order.
Right.
Most likely it's going to have to do with Hangman. And
right. And and we talked about that prior to his concussion, was, when he wrestled Mox for the title, and we were like, obviously, most likely Mox is going to win this, and they'll set up Mox versus MJF, and we knew that pretty much was the whole story. So even then, you and I questioned, like, what's next for Hangman? Like, what are they going to do for him? He doesn't have like a clear path forward. Obviously, he's out now because of his concussion. We don't know when he's going to be back. He seems to be doing well. I saw he was at WrestleCade yesterday, and I saw a picture of somebody that actually I follow her. Micnax is the name of her company, because I bought some Rainmaker earrings from her for Nikki for Christmas last year.
Nice.
But she made Hangman this cute little keychain that says Anxious Millennial Cowboy, and just the smile on his face, like, he was so happy, and he looks really great. So I hope, and Tony mentioned it on the media call, that he's doing well. Didn't give a timetable for his return, which I'm glad that they treat concussions very seriously. So we don't know when we'll see him again, but yet, like you said, most likely he will not be involved with Dark Order. Evil Uno doesn't have Stu Grayson anymore. We don't see, Colt Cabana's not there. Tin is gone. Tin has been tweeting about how he's glad that everybody's mad at Tin, because he said Tin was always his favorite member of Dark Order. And so Alan Angels is being a little heel. He's over in Violent by Design now. If you're not watching Impact, he joined like 2 episodes ago. So or officially joined. But so now it's just Silver, Reynolds and Evil Uno, and they're kind of this little lost, kind of like Hangman was. They're lost. They don't know where they're going. Like, how do you come back from Tin, who was handpicked by Brodie Lee? Brodie Lee was your leader, and you carried on without him, and now all these people are gone, and it's just the 3 of them. So do they become a trios now? Do Silver and Reynolds?
I mean, we need trios for a trios belt.
And they could even, I don't know that they would move them to Ring of Honor just because they are fairly popular, but Dalton Castle and the boys are the 6-man champions in ROH.
Oh, yeah.
So is that a trios that gets moved to ROH so that they have some more competition? Do they get the trios title when they move to ROH, or if they get moved to, I should say? So it's kind of interesting to see, like we've talked about, all these fractures in these factions now heading into this new year. And so now Dark Order is one of them. And it'll be interesting to see if they stay together, or if, I mean, maybe Silver goes on a singles run. Maybe Reynolds goes on a singles run. They could even do it with Evil Uno. So it'll be really interesting to see kind of, and then how is Tin going to fare being with Roosh and Bandito and Jose the assistant? Like, how is that going to work out? Tin is still, he's still pretty fresh. And, Amanda alluded to the fact that they will use you until they don't need you anymore.
Yeah, right.
So, so how will that work out? Will they, it'll be interesting to see how they I guess they're going to push him maybe in a more singles type of style now. Even though he will still be in, Los Ingobernables, but how that works out. So it's really interesting because, I get it, because Tin is a good wrestler, and I think he's definitely overlooked. But it'll be interesting to see how he develops a character and develops as his own person. And we get to see, I guess, Preston Vance now. So I think that'll be really interesting to see how all this plays out, especially, and of course, because clearly right now he does not care about -1, but then that, but maybe he will. Eric Rowan will join Dark Order. Hey, you know what? It's possible. He's not signed anywhere.
Anything is possible in wrestling.
And and people wondered if he'd be part of the Wyatt Six. And there's still some question about, if he'll be involved with Bray Wyatt at all. But I mean, he could end up in AEW. I could see that happening. That's a really good point. He could be.